In this session, we'll focus on welcoming challenges and changes as it pertains to intercultural education. One of the challenges and changes that we need to welcome is realizing that students, their everyday realities, situating our teaching context with the students and the environment that they find themselves in, the culture that we find ourselves in, the things that are influencing our context, the environment, and then constructing the course syllabus and assignments according to those needs as well. Another thing that's good is a community analysis project assignment that would help to realize and help us to gain more of an appreciation and affiliation with the students' everyday realities. And you could conduct activities with the community analysis project assignment so that the classroom, the students could do certain things, whether it's doing fundraising or going and doing a project somewhere, cleaning up a park, or doing some work in an elderly person's home, helping them out with some yard work or just some other thing where they may be able to do a fundraiser to raise money for a need for somebody in the community related to, say, a medical issue or a hardship. We look about sustaining ourselves under stressful times. A few tips here for educators. 3 areas we'll look at are dealing with resistance, avoiding hopelessness, despair and burnout, and ideas versus application. Dealing with resistance, not all educators obviously are going to be on board with your ideas about multicultural education. In fact, some may be downright resistance of change. Good joke out there about how many faculty does it take to change a light bulb. The first question they ask is, change? Realize that most of us, we really don't like change, and faculty for sure don't. Educators in particular like to keep things the way they have it, pretty much set in stone. While it seems that it could be easy to convey the importance of this issue, many view the topic of change as dangerous territory, risky in the sense that it may step on toes or cause offense just by the nature of it. To avoid feeling of hopelessness and despair for your work to incorporate cultural competence in your classroom, it's vital to the success of your mission. Otherwise, you'll despair in your efforts and eventually burn out. So in that sense, you really need to find a support system and a way to work with others to help you in that area. As the idea of multicultural education is often accepted by administrators and faculty, this area of ideas versus application, unfortunately, applying or initiating programs that address it are usually not. So let's look at some tips to keep you from burning out. Few other ways to help us sustain ourselves under stressful times, some tips for educators. The intellectual dimension. Here, approaching multicultural education from an intellectual standpoint is sometimes the most effective way to plead your case and to help others to realize their need for it. This approach uses theory, statistics, literature, and research support to support the legitimacy of the need. Other experts, professors, scientists, and such can be brought in to show their support and back you in your stance. Coming from a scholarly or a scholastic viewpoint can help you, especially depending on the situation you find yourself in, if you're in a university setting or higher education setting, for example. And then there's the emotional dimension. As racial bias and the numerous hate-based crimes continue to plague our society, these are cause for heightened emotion, especially for the educator dedicated to making a positive change in the classroom. We can realize or need to realize that there will be times when we feel that our efforts are having no effect, perhaps because of no incident of violence in our school or an offhanded comment made by a student or even a teacher. However, it's important that we react with a cool head, not out of frustration or anger, but with kindness and empathy, taking things in stride and trying to make a difference and realizing that you are making a difference just with your stand in these areas, and realize that it takes time and is a process. Another area to help us sustain ourselves under stressful times is the physical dimension. And here is about being aware, rules of engagement, and outlet. For example, once the emotions begin, if they're gone unchecked, they can quickly spiral out of control and manifest themselves physically. This world is made up of individuals with very different ways of thinking, and for the most part, each are very rooted in their mindset, as we talked about in an earlier lecture, right? Mindset and skill set. Based on this, stands to reason that when their ideas are challenged, discussions may become rather heated. So, kind of realizing and how to finesse your way in as you're presenting your side to bringing multicultural education into a situation or a learning environment that's resistant to it. As awareness, just be sure to keep a close eye on physical reactions of your students during a discussion. Look for signs of agitation, rapid breathing, face become angry or red, because some of this may be offensive to them. Address it beforehand, lay out ground rules for behavior and allowing them to voice opinions, but realize that it has to be done civilly and not without offensive language and things like that that can come out. So basically laying that out at the beginning of the rules of engagement, and then allowing the students to have an outlet. So you make sure that you have an outlet as an educator, so you no doubt be faced with stressful situations in the classroom. So make sure you have some sort of outlet for the stresses you experience. Hobbies or physical activity are good ways to manage stress. All these things can be helpful for you to stay there and to continue to be a person who's making a difference. Do result or relationships take priority? This is a definite differences in culture. Some cultures are goal-oriented societies. On the other hand, some cultures don't believe in creating goals or need to make goals. There's just no need for it. Some cultures are relationship-oriented societies. We talked a lot about those. And the Asian and Arab cultures, they really use relationships as the foundation for their business. Without a relationship, we're not doing business. In the West, it's more time-based. We talked about that earlier on a different lecture. And so there's things that are just so different based on the cultures that we're raised in. So these things are very good to analyze and understand what is the priority in a culture, results or relationship.